Okay, welcome back to Business Owners Speak. I am so excited to have with us Katherine McCord with Titan Management. Katherine, how are you today?
I am fantastic. I am very happy to be in today, not so sunny South Florida, but in general, sunny South Florida.
Typically, all right.
Yeah.
Oh, we really appreciate you taking the time today. Looking forward to hearing more about your journey as a business owner. So, if you could, please get started with telling us a little bit about you and the business.
Yeah, sure. So I have always been fascinated with HR. I was even as a kid fascinated with HR because I grew up with an HR professional and I would make my mother play interview with me and I would like have her in for business meetings. I even fired her once when I was 5 years old. Yeah, so I just like always kind of been fascinated with it. Grew up, I did plenty of other things too, kind of really learned the business world and all that type of thing. Fast forward, ended up working in recruiting firms and always kind of having an HR role as well. And then decided it wasn't really being done very well in general. And I saw a lot of problems. I saw a lot of people not being treated well on the candidate side of things, on the employee side of things. And I decided, you know what? Let's start fixing some of this stuff. So I struck out. I started Titan Management. We do everything from hiring to firing. And it's been a ton of fun. And I have a very strong focus on universal design, which is typically an IT concept, but I've taken it and applied it to the workplace.
Very interesting. So, what does your typical client look like right now?
So I work with all different sizes of companies, but my favorites are anywhere from about 15 people, so really starting to grow, right? Up to about 500. That's when you still really have a chance to make a big impact and set the future for the company. That's kind of my sweet spot, but I have worked with companies as small as two and as big as, well, several thousand, tens of thousands, actually. So, yeah, kind of all in there. And we are 100% remote, so we work nationwide.
Okay, fantastic. And I'm curious what some of those main things you recognized in the corporate world when you had a job versus um, and how you tried to change a couple of those things to implement through your services into other businesses.
Well, one of the things is that hiring is really broken and backward. It makes very little sense how we hire right now. So for instance, we use resumes even though everyone knows that they stink and that they don't work, right? I mean, Harvard Business Review actually put out a fantastic article about this, about how bad resumes are and they create bias and they're not really effective and people lie on them and it's just silly, right? And it's interesting to me too that we want to focus entirely on the past when hiring is about the future, right? So it's kind of a bizarre way that we do it. So I found a new and better way to do it, and I focus everything on achievements and goals and mission and talents, these types of things. And I'm not going to go into the whole
Sure.
system, that would be the whole show, but that's kind of what we do. And I have a whole different way of interviewing that's a lot more universal because we're not hiring people to be interviewed, right? So it doesn't really matter if they're good at interviewing. We just need to know if they're good at what they do, right? So I've come up with a whole different way for that. And then the same thing as soon as they come into the organization, everybody thinks differently, communicates differently, has different physical needs, all of this. And asking everyone to do something one way makes no sense. They're not even going to be as productive as they possibly could be. So I took a big lesson from Hewlett Packard, who has a wonderful program with that has, they don't call it this, but that has universal design to it. And I kind of put my own spin on it because I kind of wanted to do things a little bit differently. And I've seen similar results. So they saw a 33% increase in production with universal design in the workplace. And I've seen 30+% depending on the exact workplace myself. So just kind of helping people work in ways that are healthier, more comfortable, and making everything a lot more flexible in the
Sure.
workplace.
Very interesting and I'm sure useful and helpful. And something I'm always curious about. So as you were working and identifying some things that maybe you didn't think were as they should be, like how did you get yourself comfortable with or got yourself, comfortable being uncomfortable with a decision to kind of give up a paycheck and try to make this work on your own?
Oh, I had no fear. I would I think I was born without that mechanism that says must have secure job. I don't have that. I'm just like oh, I should fix this. This is something I could do. And I just decided to do it. That's just, and I think that part of that is it's actually a very common trait in the neurodiverse community, which just means, by the way, if you don't know, just a difference, a medically visible or diagnosable difference in how the brain processes information. So everything from like ADHD, dyslexia, autism, dyspraxia, all over the place, obsessive compulsive disorder, all different types of things. And I'm very much a part of that community, and there's a lot of benefits in that community. Johns Hopkins has put out some great work on that. PLOS Genetics has as well, um, talking about the benefits, and one of them is kind of that, oh, I can fix it, raise my hand, kind of personality. And so it was just very natural to me. Actually, I had no fear about it. Still don't.
Wow. So you're just a doer and no fear. That's beautiful. Um,
It's also it scares some people because they're like, what do you mean? Just do it. It's
right.
okay. We can do it. We have confidence. It'll be all right. And
That's
I am a planner, right? I am a super type A, so I do always have a plan. But yeah, I just kind of like, no, we can do it. It's gonna be
it's manageable. We can make this work. Well, good for you. And that word confident is so important.
right.
That's what so many are lacking, right? They're just not quite
Yeah.
sure if they can make it work, and that scares them too much. So,
I get it. I do get it.
yeah.
Yeah, I do.
All right. So, as far as some of the services go when working with these businesses, I meet you. I say my team needs this, this, and this. We bring you on. Do you help more so with the hiring, or is there kind of some
Oh no,
team building work?
everything. Yeah,
Okay.
I do. I have built out benefit programs. I've carried out training and continuing education, and not just me. I have a team also that comes in and helps. Compliance issues, getting, and then employee relations. I will hands on, like my team and I will come in hands on, take care of employee relations for you. Um, and then even helping people to have career advancement within the organization and actually planning out what that looks like and sitting down with people. And one of the things I love to do is individual career mapping as people come in, like, okay, let's talk about like, where do you want to go? What are you into? Like, yeah, you're doing this right now. What do you want to be doing? And if it's the same thing, great. How can we help you be the best, whatever it is that you do? And then if there's something you want to grow into, great. How do we get there?
Yeah.
And then leaving room so that it can pivot too, and setting up so that they can do free Udemy courses, or that they can have mentorships, or that they can have go to virtual community events, things like that are very important to individuals. And these types of programs help not only to grow in your company and bring lots of extra skills to your company, right, but it also helps to create a sense of accomplishments and a much higher sense of satisfaction in the team as well. So it kind of is a win-win-win. It eventually trickles over to the clients too, right? I also work with companies to build in innovation, and people go, what do you mean? I said, I actually teach them how to schedule an innovation, and then how to take innovation from their team and apply it and work with it. So that's part of the thing as well. So literally everything human about a workplace, that's what we do.
What I'm curious to hear, what are some of the common mistakes you found as you come into a business and start to understand the culture and how they work and whatnot? What are usually some of the things that you have to kind of jump in on right away?
Ego.
Ego.
Number one, yes. And I don't just mean ego like I think I'm the center of the universe, right? I don't just mean that, although I certainly have seen some of that too. I more mean that human beings, have a natural ego defense mechanism that's built into our primitive brain. And when something is contrary to how we do it, or how we think, or how we would say something, we read it as wrong and start throwing up defense mechanisms. Well, there was a reason for that to be there, right? But now it's in the business world, it's not really so helpful, because you end up shutting out innovation, creativity. You end up being not very inclusive and not making people feel safe and heard in the workplace. And so, and sometimes you just end up doing things ineffectively because you did it this way. Now you just think that's how it ought to be done. So I really work with people on breaking the eco mechanism, responding in curiosity, actually how to do that, and then work with them on properly engaging their team and communicating more effectively. So that's a huge piece of what I do right off the bat. And then especially with my little companies, there's always some just HR nightmarish thing that happens, whether it's a compliance issue, or um, Maybe I walk in and realize they've only hired one type of person in a department. I'm like, okay, this is why your department's struggling. You've hired five of the exact same thing. Let's get some, and
Right.
it could even like in a sales department, we've hired five sharp salespeople as opposed to like there's no nurturers, there's no, kind of story sales guys, these kinds of things. So, we have to work on that kind of thing. So yeah, there's the HR nightmare, but ego is the first thing. Yeah.
And I guess I'm kind of curious to take that ego piece a step further because is the person that is hiring you and whose idea and decision it was to bring you in, they are probably somewhat self-aware. And so maybe some of the ego isn't there, but you have to, well, maybe not. Then you go ahead and tell me because, right, I'm thinking of leaders of industry who sometimes, right, they're just always been where they've been and they think it's the
Yeah.
way and the way they should go. And so just breaking down some of those barriers, just even on a communication level, like you have
Yeah.
some tricks for that. How do you pull that off?
I do. Actually, I have. I mean, it takes very little time to teach somebody how to recognize that and how to. And so the first thing I say is, all right, I'm going to say some things to you that I know factually you're not going to agree with, and I want you to tell me where you feel that in your body. And I say a few things. You can see like they start to like cringe or twitch or make a face or whatever. And I say, okay, where did you feel that? And like for me, just as an example, whenever I feel the ego mechanism activate, it's right above the nape of my neck. I just get like all my nerves like kind of in an angry way kind of come alive. And they're like, we're angry about this. We don't like this. And I said, okay, so that's the first thing you can recognize it. I said, your body is releasing stress hormones. That's causing you to feel unpleasant. That's part of why you get gripey. That's why you aim at it. So we're going to dial that back. We're
Right.
going to tell the body, no, thank you. Actually show them how to shut that off, and release positive chemicals so that then they can be healthier and respond in a better way. And then we just kind of move forward. And what's interesting is the leaders who don't know this, and it is, I have had I'd say about 50% of them that are already pretty in tune with this. And then the other half, they're kind of like, oh wow, yeah, this is better. This feels better to me. Like this is a happier situation for me. It's not just about these other people.
Right.
Um, and so that's kind of how I bring it to them is I'm going to help you also be a little bit healthier with this whole situation, but this is with the intent of helping you work better with your team and to create more innovation, higher productivity, and greater efficiency. That's my goal.
Hmm.
And so, we just really come in and work on all that. And when I can show them numbers, that helps. That's what I tell a lot of folks in HR. I'm like, you're boofing it because you're not giving them the numbers and the data. And that's how us execs think, right? That's how us business owners think is we think in numbers, KPIs, that kind of thing. And so when you make it make sense, when you give them the dollars and cents and the actual data to go with it, it's really easy to get folks on board with it.
Sure. Putting a value to improving in a certain area can
Yes.
certainly speak to them pretty well. And that kind of makes me think as well about, a little bit about the way the workplace has changed and not just with virtual and whatnot, but also just mindset of, back when my parents were young and working, it was grind, grind, grind. How
Yeah.
many hours can I work? I need to work more and more and more to get to the top. But the newer employee generations have a different mindset there. Do you see some conflict there in the workplace these days, or is that old way phasing out? Like, what do you see?
I think it is kind of phasing out. I even see people from I'm just gonna say I jokingly call it the real adult generations, like 40 plus people, right? I think we're like kind of the real adult generations. No offense to the younger folks out there. So really and truly, I am starting to see that fade away. People are starting to embrace their lives, their health, being happy. This is the thing that people are starting to understand and to steer towards. Even the people that don't feel it themselves are starting to accept, like, okay, I've got to deal with this. Like, I've got to deal with the fact that this is what it is, right?
No,
Um, and what's interesting too, though, is that people somehow think that less work is getting done, but it's not. So when people are happier and healthier, they work just as effective. They actually work more effectively, so they can do just as much in less time. And what I've also found, because I've been remote since 2014, is that when people are allowed to work remotely or at their leisure, that kind of thing, kind of as it suits them, as much as possible. Obviously, sometimes we have to do certain things within certain time frames. But as long when they're kind of given more autonomy to their role, again, they start to function at a higher level and they will actually do more work past the 40 hours a week, but it's done in ways that are comfortable to them. So it's like, oh, I'm sitting poolside, I'm a little bored. Let me return some emails or let me get on LinkedIn and do some stuff. And people start to think of work in a different way. It just becomes part of their lives as opposed to this thing I've got to do and then I get to the rest of my life. When you can kind of build it into your life, it just becomes seamless and therefore less stressful, right? And so then it's not something that we try to get away from so much.
Fascinating. And for you as a business owner, I'm curious, what is and kind of has been what you would say the most challenging part of being a business owner?
Oh boy. I just hate sales. I do. So I hate the sales cycle. I do. I loathe it. I can't like I love the work that I do. I hate the sales cycle. That's just the honest truth. Although I mean I found some really cool ways to do it. So that's helped. Like I've made it more enjoyable for myself.
Yeah.
Um
You ate
I
your own
love
cooking.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Like I love podcasting. I love going to conventions and going to networking events, that kind of thing. So that's the kind of stuff, I spend a lot of time doing. Um, and so that part of it, I just absolutely adore. So I've just done things to try to make it more enjoyable. Other than that, I think never being able to turn it off. And I think every entrepreneur on the planet, every business owner on the planet can understand that you'll wake up at 2 a.m. and go, oh my gosh, and you like whatever it is, whether it's a problem that needs to be solved or it's something that you got really excited about randomly. And then you just have to deal with it and work through it. And especially the first couple of years, it's rough, but that never really goes away. And that can be a bit much sometimes.
Well, and you're very good at this segue thing. I don't know if you know where my questions are going, but I want to ask you about some words of wisdom, right? Some advice you would give other business owners who are maybe a year or two in and fighting through it and not seeing what
Yeah,
they want to see. And like, well, how do you advise people in that situation?
a few things. First of all, seriously, learn to shut off that ego mechanism. All that like learn to ask questions and to truly hear what people are saying to you because I see a lot of people asking for advice and then they argue with that advice. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that what was the point of that? That was completely silly. So learn to really listen to people, find your tribe, find the other people who are going through it, maybe not in your exact industry, but something similar, who can relate to you, who are on the same mission as you. Mission alignment is critical with this. And find those people, find your rah-rahs and have them there. And those people that will break it down, tell you what's up, be very honest with you, and that will really bond to you. And they're all over LinkedIn. This is not hard to do, folks. Like just get on LinkedIn, comment on some stuff, start messaging people, build a tribe. It's actually super, super simple. Um, and then another thing is shake it up. The Einstein's definition of insanity is to repeat the same thing expecting different results, right? That's nuts. So if something's not working, you're not doing something is not right about this process. Now it could be that you don't have the right audience. It could be that you don't have the right people around you. It could be that you need to adjust your pricing. Or it could even be that your product isn't exactly what the market needs and it may need to be tweaked. And I've had to do that. I've had to tweak my business. I've had to highlight different things that we do as we've gone along. Sometimes it's staffing, sometimes it's the HR side. It just kind of depends. Sometimes it's the training side. I have to, based on what the market needs, focus on different parts of the business. So pay attention to the market and really kind of get that feedback. Maybe do some polls, things like that, and see if what you're bringing really is what the market needs. And if not, tweak it. You can always come back to what you originally thought later.
Sure. Great advice. And you hit on something there that we see a lot as business coaches, which is when. Okay, I've learned how to track the data, understand what a marketing effort may be doing and not returning to my business. When is it time to change things? And I think that's a really hard thing for business owners to decide on.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when do you do it?
Uh,
How do you
I
know?
mean, that's kind of relative because it can be, if it's something cheap, or free, keep doing it for a bit.
Right.
And maybe just kind of tweak how you're doing it, tweak your messaging, things like that. If it's something that costs you a lot of money, shut it down. If it's not working, shut it down. And again, maybe you just haven't quite figured out how to do it yet, but why are you going to keep spending money when it's not working? That's nonsensical. So don't be afraid to turn it down, to shut it down. But what I always do first, this is kind of my due diligence, is I try to find someone for whom it is working and figure out why it's working for them, because then that may tell me why it's not working for me.
Yep.
Right. And that has happened a few times where I reach out to somebody and I realize, oh my gosh, this platform is really for coaches as opposed to, and so it's a little bit different thing. So that's another big piece of advice for me is reach out to people and try to figure out what's going on.
Well said, and really interesting business and bringing a whole different look to what a business environment should look and feel like. Titan Management, Katherine McCord, thank you so much for taking the time today. We really enjoyed meeting you.
Thanks for having me. Matt.
You bet.